Welcome, Team OnCore. I've got an exciting guest here today, Andy Pope. Andy is a professional golfer. He's an OnCore ambassador. He was born in Glen Ellen, Illinois. He played college golf at Xavier University, graduated in 2006, 2004 conference champion. And he has played on the web.com tour since 2012. He's had tied sixth finish was his best in the 2012 Mexico Open. And Andy has competed in several U.S. Opens on the PGA Tour. Andy, welcome to our show. How are you?
I'm great, Steve, man. Thanks for having me on. How are you?
Awesome. Where are you calling in from?
Calling in from Orlando, down here in sunny Florida. Live here at Orange Tree Golf Club. So, still getting to play a little bit, which is nice. But, just like everyone else, spending a lot of time inside.
You're in one of the few states where golf is still allowed. So does that give you a bit of an edge on your competition? You staying sharp?
Yeah, I mean, I can't think that it hurts. A lot of guys are probably sitting at home with not much to do. I know a lot of the guys up in Chicago area, everything's closed down up there. So, yeah, I mean, our course is open. It's not taking any guests, but we have a lot of good players here. Jim Renner played on tour for a few years, still in the Nationwide or on the Corn Ferry, and got a lot of guys that we have a good group with, and so yeah, we've been putting together some games every day, and it's almost like normal going for me. It's just a normal off week.
Do you have to put some money on the games to feel that pressure, or can you just play without?
Nah,
gambling?
you gotta have something on the line. I mean, if I'm going out there with nothing on the line, I'm probably trying to work on something. But the only way to really test what you're working on is to put some money on the line and challenge yourself against a fellow competitor who is every bit as good as you. So yeah, we usually go out and play some sort of turkey game, is what we like to call it. So.
Well, can you speak to the level of pressure going from the web.com tour to, say, a U.S. Open, which I know you've competed in a few?
It's a different vibe for sure. You get out on Nationwide, the Corn Ferry, and it's a great production. They really do a great job. But in terms of fans and just how big it is, I remember when we qualified in 15 for Chambers Bay. And you pull out onto this big hill at Chambers Bay, and you look down. And when we looked down, I mean, we just saw hundreds and thousands of tents. And we were just like, holy cow, like, look at all this, everything that's gone into this preparation. Look at that. And, then all of a sudden, you get out there for a practice round out on the Corn Ferry, maybe a couple hundred people, maybe nobody's really watching you. You get on a practice round at US Open, you got 1,000 people on every hole. So, pretty cool. I mean, it was more, they set the stage really well. I wouldn't say it's so much, it's one of those things, as a player, leading up to it, maybe there's some anxiety and stuff, but once you get inside the ropes, you're kind of in your comfort zone. So, once we got inside the ropes, it's like, all right, everybody's kind of away. I can do my thing, and, the nerves kind of go away.
Sure. It must be an amazing experience to compete at that level. I know you've been working for years to work your way up from the web.com tour to the PGA Tour. So let me start with the daily grind of being a tour pro. How do you manage that? You hear about it in the news all the time. Players going from tournament to tournament, sleeping out of their cars, and barely having enough money to make the next event. What is that struggle and life like?
I mean, it's real. I don't think people truly understand what it's like to try to pursue something like this, because at the end of the day, there's only 150 guys teeing it up in every single event, or maybe even less. So when you think about that in the terms of amount of people in the entire world, it's a very, very small scale. So, day in and day out, I mean, you really having a great, team and family and just people around you, keeping you positive, because it's one of those things where, you could go do a Monday qualifier you've worked so hard to get there. You go shoot a 66, you've played great, but 4 guys have shot 65 or better, and you leave in the course feeling disappointed and you're frustrated and you're mad. And at the same time, it's like, well, you just shot a 66, you played really well. And so on a daily basis, it's if you're looking at the big picture, it's one day at a time, and it's get into the gym, work on your putting, just kind of going through it. But it definitely, it's wearing, I mean, it costs a lot of money. You're traveling a lot, if when you had conditional status, I've had in the past, you play on Sunday, now you're not in the tournament Monday. So you got to travel Sunday night, get to the new course for Monday, try to do a Monday qualifier Monday, where the other guys, they're just kind of traveling. It's no big deal. And then, I had a buddy of mine, Evan Harmeling. We stayed together in Columbia earlier this year. And the following week we're in Sarasota, and he wasn't in that event. So on Sunday night, he got done. He's got to take a red eye to Miami, gets into Miami, and then he's got to drive 2 hours to Sarasota, goes and shoots a bogey-free 69 and misses by a shot. And it's like, those are the days and stories where it's like, yeah, it's long hours, it's lots of travel, nutrition. At first when I was traveling, you don't really know the ropes, and you don't know too much, and you're in your 20s, you don't know. Now that I'm older, I understand what my body needs. You kind of understand what you need in terms of preparation for a tournament or rest and just eating. And mentally it can be just draining. And everyone's like, oh, you're living the life, you're out on the road. And it's like, yeah, I mean, you're out on the road, that's right. But, sleeping in a hotel every single night's not the same as sleeping in your bed. And, eating food from a restaurant every night's not the same as a home cooked meal from your mom or your wife. So, it's definitely stressful. But again, if you have a great, my family, my wife is very supportive. My family's always been very supportive. The members at my club are very supportive, and it's those people that are, kind of pushing you along, and your peers, the guys that you kind of surround yourself with. Myself, I've kind of hung around with Jim Renner and Rob Oppenheim a lot, and we talk a lot, and it's, we're kind of trying to build each other up as we go.
Great. For users just joining us, we've got Andy Pope here, OnCore Golf Professional. We have a lot of young up and coming players that are using the Elixir Tour Ball. What advice would you give them? Maybe they're wondering if they have what it takes to be a professional. How could you help them?
The first thing is you got to throw yourself in the pot. You get a lot of guys that are saying, hey, I'm going to try to play pro, or I want to do this. And, when I came out of college, most of us went and played the Hooters Tour, and, we went and played in every single event we could. And in that regard, you're trying to measure yourself against your competition. And I remember when I got out on the Hooters Tour that Ted Potter was winning every single event, him and Jeff Core. And I just thought to myself, I got to get to these as close as I can to these guys to see what they're doing. So after a few weeks, I got into a practice round with those guys. And the first thing that I noticed with both of these guys, and especially Ted, was Ted's swing and Ted's putting was Ted's. He was very unique. If you've ever seen him swing, it's kind of short, it's really tight. When he putts, it's very poppy. I mean, and he's firm in them. And I'm watching him hit these putts, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like he's going to putt it 7 feet by. Sure enough, it hits the hole, goes in. But, what I took away from watching those guys was, I don't need to be Tiger Woods. I'm not Tiger Woods. I'm not going to try to swing like him. And so if it's anything I could say to those guys and people trying, it's like, your golf game is your golf game. Make it yours. Don't try to be somebody else's. So, if you don't drive the ball well, you should know that. And maybe, in certain situations, pull out your 3-wood or, and play to your strengths. But, ultimately, it's one of those things where get involved, put your name in the bucket, and, see what happens and learn every time. I think that's the most unique thing from golf is if you're honest with yourself, you can learn every single time you play. If you play with the guy who mishits a shot and then blames it on the wind and then blames it on, something moved, he's not being honest with himself. And if you commit to every single shot 100%, it's so much easier to get better. So every time I play, I look for, okay, what mistakes did I make? Was I fully committed? And normally you're not fully committed. It's tough. You're fighting, oh, well, I didn't want to miss it to the right, so I was kind of shading, instead of just hitting the shot that you wanted. So For guys that are, you know, younger and upcoming, I would say, you know, play to your strengths, but be true to yourselves. You know, it's the only way to get better, and I think that's what makes golf the best game there is.
Great advice. One of the things I've heard is that, you know, depending on your height as a golfer, you can look at other golfers that are maybe a similar height if you're trying to model your swing after them. Is there any truth to that? I mean, I see a guy, I'm around 6'2". I've seen, you know, great swings, and then I look at the player profiles and say, oh, you know, he's a little shorter. You know, maybe he can do that swing because he's got a different body build. Is there any truth to that?
I would think so. I mean, just with the bigger guys, I mean, you can see the arc that they create is just much bigger. Where a guy like myself, I mean, I'm 5'10", 170 if I'm soaking wet. So it's like I've got to play to my strengths where I hit it straight. I know I drive the ball great. So I mean, for
I
me,
don't.
it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm like I'm in the fairway every hole. So I've given myself lots of opportunities where I need to be working is I need to be making it up on the putting greens because I'm hitting lots of greens and I'm hitting it so straight where that should be my strength where, you know, bigger guys, you know, like yourself, if you can actually hit it further, you know, that's the huge advantage where for myself, I'm trying to specialize in 100 yards and in. I've worked with Skip Kendall over the last couple of years on short game putting wedges. And for me, it's I need to keep it in play to play to my strengths so that I can try to beat these guys around the hole instead of a bigger guy. But framing your swing towards somebody else out there, I think is a great idea. I mean, I've watched my swing a few times. I think it's similar to like a Ricky Fowler's, something similar to like that. It's a little handsy. It's kind of low at impact, but definitely watching other players is where you can learn a lot, you know, and it doesn't have to be, again, I don't have to go just on what Ricky does or just on what Tiger does or Justin Thomas. Take little pieces of what each guy does and try to tailor that to yourself.
One of my other questions was for golfers at home watching TV. Granted, there's not a lot of live golf on right now, but are there things you as a professional, when you're watching golf on TV, look for or try to learn from that maybe our viewers at home who are listening, when they watch, you know, can be a little more discerning possibly?
You know, if it's one thing I've noticed, it's consistency. But it's not consistency and just hitting it straight. It's going through your routine. You watch the guys on TV. It doesn't matter if they've got a 3-foot putt for birdie, eagle, double bogey. They're going to spend the exact same amount of time on that 3-footer. And I think for the average golfer, when you got a bogey putt and it's 6 feet, you're like, I don't care. And you just kind of go up and hit it. But if that same 6-footers for eagle, now all of a sudden you're asking, you know, 2 guys in your group what the putt does, what it's doing. And you put so much value on what a putt could be worth instead of playing them because they're all the same. It's just a shot. So I think
Right.
what the pros do is they do a really good job of taking the value away from a putt. And they say, it doesn't matter if the putt's for bogey, double bogey, you know, if it's a 5-footer, I'm going to treat it the exact same way. So I would say it's consistency because I see it with my friends, you know, guys playing not so great, hitting some putts, just making pars and bogeys. Next hole, he hits it to 5 feet. And now he's circling the hole 5 different times and he's reading. And it's like, you didn't do that before. Why would you do that now? So I would say getting into a routine on your putting, you know, whether it's 2 practice strokes and go or whatever it is, but a routine and keeping it consistent.
Great advice. Can you tell us what's in your golf bag, maybe starting from your putter on up, and maybe for golfers at home that are watching, any advice in terms of how to build a bag? I know I've got certain gaps in my bag and I'm always kind of going back and forth. Do I add a hybrid? Do I, you know, add an extra lob wedge and take out this and just kind of maybe walk us through how you think about building a golf
Yeah,
bag?
absolutely. So I got an Odyssey arm bar putter. I'm using the putter that you rest against your forearm, kind of like Matt Kuchar. So it's 42 inches. I started using it about a year ago now. And for me, the arm bar just kind of helped take away a little bit of my hands. It's a little bit more mechanical, I would call it. But, starting with the putter is where it's at. You got to find a putter that you enjoy putting with, that you love. If you're fighting your putter, I mean, we putt on every single hole. You're going to use it. So first thing first is find a putter, find a routine that you like. Wedges are obviously very important. You're going to be chipping with them. I mean, whether it's 60, 64 degree, but I would learn how to chip with my 60 degree and use the bounce. I think people don't understand exactly what the bounce is. So understanding how to just pitch and use the bounce and hit an 8-yard chip and just build up from there is kind of where I would go. And then, in terms of irons, I'm using Titleist irons right now that are probably 5 years old, 4 years old. I'm currently kind of switching over to some ping irons, but everybody makes good clubs these days. So I wouldn't get too caught up on whether ping's better than Titleist or TaylorMade. They're all kind of the same. Really, it kind of comes down to the shaft. And lots of guys think they need stiff shafts. It's like, you don't. You're not swinging it hard enough. But my biggest thing for myself was I put in a 7-wood a couple years ago. And for me, I thought, I have a 5-wood as well. 5-wood, 7-wood. I think those clubs for the average player are so much easier to hit than the hybrids. Now, I'm not saying that the hybrids are bad, but the way you swing a wood compared to where you swing an iron, the hybrid still feels like you're swinging almost like you're trying to hit a 3-iron or 4-iron, where it's kind of hard to get the ball up in the air and you still are trying to hold the face. Where with the woods, the 5 and 7 wood, you can still release your hands and get the height. So for me, I was always struggling with the 220 to 230 yard shot. You're on a PGA course and you got to stop the ball quick. Well, if I pulled out my 3-iron, I'd normally hit it kind of high or not. And then if I pulled out my hybrid, it's kind of like a laser shot and not much spin, where the 7-wood, I don't have to worry about it. I can hit it straight up in the air. 5-wood, same type of thing. So I have a 4 hybrid and I have a 7-wood. 5 is my highest iron. And so I know back in the day, everybody had 2 irons and 3s and 0 irons and what have you. I would suggest throwing the low irons away. I mean, just
Yeah.
me personally, I think they're hard to hit. I'm playing with Jim Renner yesterday and watching him hit 3-irons. They're amazing. But I'm like, there's not many people that can hit a 3-iron like that. And so, I would suggest looking into the woods or the new, and then driver, everybody thinks the new driver and that's it. And I mean, if you went off of TaylorMade's, their promotions, they guarantee you 5 to 10 yards every year. It's been 10 years of them doing that. You'd be hitting it 100 yards further. I would go with a driver that, where the ball's going. At the end of the day, the game is about knowing which way the ball's going. If you play a draw, play the draw. If you play a cut, play the cut. It's when guys are, they cut it off the tee and they say, hey, I need to get a new driver. I want to draw it off the tee. I want to start hitting it further. And it's like, we can do that. But, now you're talking about changing your swing, changing everything else. Why not find a driver that maybe is a little bit stiffer, or maybe it's a little weaker. So if you actually cut it and if it's a little weaker, maybe it'll allow for some kick. So I would look into tinkering with the shafts a little bit more than just going out and buying new stuff.
Yeah,
And
that's
of course, sorry, the golf ball, which is number one. I mean, like I personally, I was on staff with Titleist for years. And when I switched over to OnCore, all I tell people is, I'm not a salesman. Here's a sleeve of balls, try them yourself, because you're going to see that they are not only every bit as good as what's out there, but they're better. And I can tell you, for me personally, just the OnCore ball in the wind has been better than anything out there. It spins around the green, it's soft, and it goes every bit as far. In fact, I've had so many people tell me it goes further than any ball they've hit. And like I said, I mean, I just say try it, because it's worth trying, because And then that's the one thing that I'm probably not going to have a hard time changing off of. I don't see myself going away from it because the ball is that good.
Well, appreciate that and great advice. Certainly, certainly agree 100% on the ball. And although I know I'm a bit biased, but counterintuitive on the three, on the 5 wood and 7 wood. I would normally think the hybrid would be easier, but when you put it that way, it makes complete sense. And I've never really been able to hit a hybrid the way I think it should be hit, or so.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to try that advice of yours.
You got it. I'm the woods are more of a sweeping. So when you're trying to hit it hard and you can sweep it and still get it to go up without having to force it up, it really takes away. And I mean, I've gotten a few guys here at my club to try it out, and it's every time come over, hey man, I just had 220 into this par five at 5 wood on the green, no problem. And I'm like, awesome. It
Yeah.
makes there was a hole in Knoxville as a par five. We still play there, the Fox Den. Par five up the hill, and you hit driver or a 3 wood off the tee, then you left yourself this shot straight uphill over these trees. Nobody could get it over the trees. So when I went to Titleist, I'm like, I need a 5, if not 7. And they were like, all right, here's 5. And all of a sudden I'm hitting it over the trees. And then I'm like, how about 7? Like, let's keep on going. So definitely worth trying if you're out there listening. Get a 5 or 7 wood and see what it does compared to your hybrid.
Well, also hearing you say that, good advice to experiment with clubs and your bag and see what's best for your game. For the golfers that just joined us, we've got OnCore Golf Professional Andy Pope with us. Feel free to leave your comments below for Andy and OnCore, and we'll get to them. What advice would you have for those of us in our off season getting ready to play? What are some things we can be working on, practicing, even for those that are in season right now?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it starts from 3 feet. 3 feet is, we play a lot of golf and you play with your buddies and everybody wants to give you a putt here. Or, hey, that's good. That's good. Start at 3 feet, make all the 3-footers, and it's like, it sounds so basic, but if you can get just the idea of the ball going in the hole, start at 3 feet and just start your way backwards. And I personally I think stretching. I've been stretching a lot with bands. I work out with a trainer who does bands, and I mean, I can't say enough about Herman. It's just stretching, bands. Core work is where it's at. I mean, I hate doing sit-ups, but I wake up every day. I do a couple push-ups. I do 150 just bicycle kicks just to kind of get going, and it's like, you want to be working on your core. That's where your power's at, and your legs. I'm bike riding every single day. You want to have a great foundation to be able to turn off of. And I mean, it's hard to say, go do this or that, or there's a specific drill, but it's just putting around in your house, putt to a specific spot, and I mean, try to putt to small targets. Putt to a little glass, putt to something, and just chipping around. I think if you get the idea of chipping the ball and being able to control the spin, which is really what the game is, as I always say, imagine your club was a ping pong paddle. And if you wanted to hit, an overhand spin ball, you'd kind of hood it and kind of get the ball going. On the contrary, if you're going to hit like a backhand little cutter, like, Federer does all the time, you kind of open the face a little bit and try to do that. And if people can kind of just understand, I always just say, chip the ball 10 yards. Let me see you chip it 10, and the guy can't chip it 10. And I'm like, just chip it. And so, if you had a little bucket in your living room, chip it 5-10 yards. That's the most important shot there is. And then you kind of build up from there, and you kind of start seeing how the ball spins each time. And, if you can get the ball spinning left and right, I mean, that's ultimately when I'm swinging a golf club, even if it's a full shot 7-iron, the first thing I'm doing is thinking about the spin of the ball. Am I going to have this ball spinning and trying to cut it to get it to stop quick? Am I trying to get it to draw spin so I can get it to roll out a little bit? Am I just trying to hit it normal? So doing the little chipping just, in your living room, you'll start to see, hey, I can make this ball hit and bounce a little to the right, or I can make it hit and kind of take off and go left. So,
yeah, one of the best rounds I played last summer at Turning Stone was I spent about a half hour before the round just working on my short game. They had a beautiful practice facility. Bunch of the guys were at the driving range, and I just was working, at the green, just working on chip shots, and um, one of the best rounds I played all summer. And I thought, well, maybe it had something to do with how I warmed up and just working on the short game.
I just played golf Monday with Damon Green. Used to caddy for Zach Johnson, still caddies out there quite a bit. And I mean, from the get-go, his first hole, he hits it over the green, impossible chip. I mean, he hits this chip, lands just on the fringe, gets on the green, checks a little bit, rolls out to an inch. And we're all like, wow. 2 holes later, chips in. 2 holes
Wow.
later, pitches it from 40 yards to 3 feet. Next hole, wedge. And we and Jim Renner, we looked at each other. I'm like, what's this guy been doing? He just says, hey, I just been chipping around, and it's shots like that could really save, if you're not hitting it that well, just pitching and understanding, hey, I can get this thing within 5 feet. It can turn around around pretty quick. That was quite an anomaly there. But yeah, no, I mean, just chipping and understanding like how the ball's reacting, and you can see how the ball's reacting on the green for sure if you're chipping around in the morning.
So when you mentioned core work and stretching, are you practicing yoga or just kind of doing your own stretches?
I've done yoga for the last few years. I think yoga is fantastic. It's a way to kind of let your body release. I guess I would say naturally. I don't know that that's anything, but yoga kind of learning the breathing. If there's one thing you can understand, it's breathing. I've worked a lot on breathing techniques, and when you're out there and just, a couple deep breaths, we try to say 6 to 7 breaths per minute, which, you start saying that, and I'll try it here with my kids. I'm like, all right, everyone just breathe in, breathe out, and by the end of it, he's like, I'm out of breath. But, if you can control your central nervous system through yoga and breathing techniques and stretching and, yeah, I mean, if you can just get into a nice routine of doing that. I have actually a massage table at the house, and I put the bands behind it. And, I kick my legs up, and I'm stretching those every single morning. And, I got the thing between your legs that's going around, and you're walking, and just lots of stuff where, you can do most of it at home, in the living room. And nowadays, I mean, you can pop on yoga classes right in your living room. So we'll sit down and we'll just, turn the lights down and, just do some yoga for 30 minutes. And it's amazing how much it can make your body feel.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing how the attitude on tour has changed with Tiger, and certainly his emphasis on physical fitness. You had one of our ambassadors, Gary Player.
Oh yeah.
Obviously was way ahead of the curve on fitness and flexibility, and I mean, you look at him, he's 84. We just spoke to him a few days ago, and he's breaks his age every round. He's shooting in the low 70s, and he's looking to beat his age by, I think he said 18 strokes, and 16 is his best. I mean, so a sport you can play for a lifetime, but you've got to maintain the physical, the stamina and flexibility. And I know there was a rumor going around tour that you had a 6-pack. I thought it was a beer, but apparently with all your core work, it might have been a chiseled ab pack, huh?
It definitely could have been. It could have been too many Taft's beers. But I don't know if you saw that. Did you see those Peloton rides those guys did a couple weeks ago?
Who was riding?
Rory rode and Billy Horschel rode. But so my wife had recently just gotten a Peloton, so I've been riding the bike. And you look at the output that Rory McIlroy does on a Peloton, and it'll explain to you why that guy can hit it so far.
Really?
He's roughly the same size I am. He can hit it 30, 40 yards past me. His output on the Peloton was 9 times higher than mine. There's 40,000 people did it. I think I ranked like 18,000. He's ranking like 7th or top, and it's like, wow. You can see how much hard work these guys are putting in. And, and you're right. Tiger changed it. I mean, before it was, have a cigarette and a beer out on the course with the guys, and, nobody really cared about it. And it's one of those things as a 35-year-old, I just turned 36. I remember being in college and, they're saying, hey, we're here for 5 a.m. workouts. And I'm like, no way. I'm not doing that. I'm in college. I'm not coming in at 5 a.m. I'd come in there and, we just didn't give it our full effort. And, looking back on that now, I'm like, boy, I wish I would have listened, because that's the way the game's going. And, that's kind of how sports are going. But golf is specifically, you're getting the bigger, faster athletes. And so, if you want to keep up, you got to kind of keep up with everybody else is doing. So I've been working out more in the last 5 years than I have in my entire life.
Switching gears from physical to mental, it's always said golf is 80-90% mental. Are there things you're working on to boost your mental performance?
Reading, I just read a couple of really good books. I still to this day, that's 7 Days of Utopia is a book. They made a movie about it. I forget the actors that were in it. The movie was not great, but the book was amazing. And it just talked about see it, feel it, trust it. And so, it's just a mental game
Is it a golf book or just
it's a golf book. It's about a guy playing in the Houston Open, and he blows it on the last round, and then he drives out in the middle of nowhere, conks out, and now he's in Utopia, and it's a bunch of cowboys out there, and they kind of just show him the ropes for 7 days, and he learns patience by fishing on a boat, and he does just different things. They say, hey, let's go pitch coins and pitch quarters, let's go putt, and it's a really good book. But yeah, reading and trying to understand. I mean, it is more mental than anything, I mean, you get over how many times you've gotten over a shot. You're like, this is great. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to rip it. Then all of a sudden you stand over it. A big gust of wind comes into you. Now all of a sudden you're like, I need to hit a draw because that wind's coming into me. And now you're trying to adjust while you're over the ball. And the next thing you know, you hook one left. And it's like, what just happened? It was like, well, just a little bit of wind came into me and it changed everything. So trying to eliminate that type of stuff is kind of what I've been working on a lot. I just read another book called, actually right here, Top Dog. Dude, this isn't for, it's not for sports. It's the science of winning and losing, but Top Dog really goes into big explanation about how your subconscious doesn't understand no. So when you get up on a tee shot and say, hey, I don't want to hit this thing left in the water, well, essentially you're telling your body, hit it left in the water, because your subconscious can't process no. So the further and further you aim right, and then next thing you know, you've pulled it left. And when I play with a lot of guys, I'll ask them that instantly. Hey, did you think about blading that over the green and hitting that house? And the guy's like, excuse me? I'm like, well, no, did it ever cross your mind? And he's just like, yeah, absolutely. I was terrified of it. I kept telling myself not to. And it's like, now you need to learn to say, I want to hit it here and try to go through with it. And that's what I was getting to earlier. That's how you learn, and that's how you can get better, is because I said, all right, I'm going to land my chip shot right here. I'm going to commit to it. Well, all of a sudden the wind popped up and I kind of, and then I chunked the bunker shot. Well, what happened? Well, I stopped thinking about landing at my spot. I started thinking about the wind, and I started to make an adjustment. So lots of reading just on, trying to be mental, and working with Skip has helped. Just, hearing from a guy that played for over 20 years on the PGA Tour and really made a career out of chipping and putting the ball. He's really given me some interesting insight into, I wouldn't say trick your brain into, stuff, but just more going through the process and trying to understand that, again, not every putt needs to have a value. They all are worth the same. So yeah, I think you can learn a lot from reading and actually just watching. I mean, even in a practice round, I enjoy watching guys in a practice round more than I like playing it myself, because if I can watch 3 guys hit putts on a green at the same time, well, that's 3 putts that I didn't even have to hit. I could watch these guys more than anything. So it's trying to learn every time you go and play, and every minute that you're not playing, what you did. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I have replayed the US Open from last year in my head. I mean, it's thousands at this point. There's not a day that goes by where I'm not like, man, I was a couple under par going into, day 3, there we are, ready to go. I'm like, what happened? And I made a triple bogey on 8, and I still go back to that shot, but it's, stuff leading up to that. Why did I make that decision? Well, I made that decision because I was frustrated that I wasn't making many putts. So I decided to take on a shot on number 8 out of the rough that, it was a very high risk shot that I shouldn't have taken on. And, I ended up making triple bogey. But again, when I look at it, I'm like, the decision was fine. I can live with it. But I made that decision based on me getting frustrated that my putts weren't going in. So, you got to look back and be able to reflect on, previous experiences and try to learn from each one.
I think a lot of amateur golfers watching, we've been taught selective memory. Focus on the great shots you've had and try to block out the bad ones. And I think what you're describing is a little more analytical and saying what can I learn from that mistake and how can I improve it next time. And what I also heard you saying, watching other players and thinking about putts and the way they break. I was reading Golf Digest last night and they were recapping Tiger's win at the Masters, and they talked about the practice rounds and dropping balls at different spots on the green. And I think that concept is foreign to a lot of us amateur golfers that are just we just take things as they come, one shot at a time. And by the time we get up to the green, we're just happy if we hit the green, and then it's okay, which way does this break? Whereas at your level, you're thinking about that the night before, weeks before, and you're visualizing. And I think that's something that beginner, intermediate golfers, amateur golfers can really learn from, is to think a little more strategically.
No, absolutely. It's funny. Trying to go play a new course is probably one of the coolest things that I get to do. Is you kind of get to go play a new course and you get to see how the designer made the course. What is the defense of the course? Is it off the tee and the bunkering, or is it on the greens? And normally it's up by the greens. And I just think it's the funniest when you get a pin that'll be, let's say, on the right side of the green, and it looks like if you go at that pin, you're just going to be dead, especially if you miss it right. But then on the contrary, if you hit it in the middle of the green on the left, you're going to have this diabolical downhill putt. So it's almost, I love playing with guys, and I'm like, go right at it. If you miss it to the right, that chip is going to be straight up the hill, and it's going to be real easy. Even that bunker shot's going to be easy, because if you get it over there 50 feet, you're not going to be able to two-putt. And to them, that's just such a weird concept to understand, because sometimes I'll even try to miss the green intentionally. And I remember doing that at a couple of US Opens where I had to miss the greens because it left me the best spot to make a par. So
yeah, certainly something that we can all benefit from. For those just joining us, Andy Pope here, OnCore Golf Professional. Feel free to leave your comments below. Andy's got a little visitor there.
yeah, sorry about that.
No worries. So earlier we talked about gambling, in your practice rounds, just putting a little money on the round to keep the pressure up so that you're ready come professional events. The tour has really gotten behind gambling. Well, I shouldn't say gotten behind, but maybe accepted the fact that sports, with the legalization in gambling, is here to come, whether they like it or not. So how do they make it as legitimate and in a professional way as they can? Just curious if that if the fact that people are at home wagering on sports is and particular golfers is kind of coming up. Are you guys talking about it on tour, on the web.com tour, on the and has it affected you guys in any way?
I think it's a really good thing personally. I think that sports betting has just been around for so long, and it's just, part of our human nature. Guys haven't really talked about it much. I wouldn't think that there would ever be any sort of collusion or anything you're playing a one-on-one sport. And I was going to say earlier is one of the main reasons I personally chose golf was, I played a lot of sports growing up, baseball, basketball, all that stuff, football. But one of the things that really hit home with me on golf was it's all on me. There's no team. So, when you play baseball, if a guy drops a fly ball or a guy misses a catch in football, it's, when it's golf, it kind of puts it all on you. So I think for golfers, I don't think there should be any sort of problem, because there would never be a time where I got on a tee box thinking, hey, there's a lot of people betting on me or a lot of people betting on him. No, we're going out there. We're trying to beat each other, be as professional as we can about it. But yeah, I mean, we all took a class and read a thing about it, obviously not to share information that we know if, I know Steve's hurt and, he's teeing it up when he shouldn't be, that type of stuff. I would think most of the guys would respect the rules, and again, I think it's going to be good for the game. I mean, I think that it gets more people involved, it gets people excited, and it ultimately gets more people to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. It adds a little more excitement when you've got a few dollars on the line for sure. Although
Absolutely.
disclosure, it is extremely hard to pick winners when you don't know what you're doing. So, can you tell us the most exciting part of your job and the most frustrating part?
I mean, the most exciting would definitely be being, getting to be able to travel and play golf. And I just went to Colombia, I just went to Mexico, I just went to, Panama, got to see the world. I mean, to be able to see the world, do a lot of traveling and play golf, really, really cool. I mean, I can't, we went to Brazil, we went to Chile. I've traveled a lot. I've been around the U.S. Even we're starting to introduce, my 5-year-old, showing him all the states and what's going on. I'm like, hey man, I've been here, and it's like, wow, you've been to a lot of places, and it's, it just, even from when we were on the Hooters tour and we were driving in our cars, using the maps and just driving through, middle of Georgia or in Alabama, is just, seeing the world, and just very, very cool. So definitely coolest part would be the traveling. And the hardest part is, it's, the daily grind is tough, and when you're not on the PGA and you're not making millions that everybody sees, I mean, I'm very much so like a normal person. We get, checks every week, and we're kind of just living a normal life, trying to make, make our bills paid and all that. So it can be very frustrating in the sense that, if you started to think, hey, if I don't make this 5-footer, I'm not going to be able to eat. Well, that would be really tough. So, trying to understand that, we're building towards something, and, each day, me and my wife, when we do talk about it, we're saying, everything that I'm doing, even practicing right now, I'm going to go out later today, I'm going to chip, we're trying to build towards getting onto the PGA Tour. So it can be very frustrating. And, I always told some people, it was funny, is like, trying to explain to my, other parents that I'm a pro golfer sometimes can be a funny task. It's like, oh, okay, so you teach, and I'm like, well, not quite. I'm playing. It's like, oh well, I just saw you make, and everything's public, so everyone can see what you're making or what you're not making. So but that also, again, that's kind of one of the coolest things. It's fun when you get text messages from a friend's mom or a friend's aunt or somebody you just randomly met, and they're saying, hey, following you, you're doing great, keep it up. It's pretty neat. So definitely another pretty cool perk is to have other people around the country. Even when I was doing Monday qualifiers, I can't tell you, I'd have the same, 5 to 15 people text me right when I get done on Monday. I mean, it's hard to even find the results, let alone I'm playing them, and people, so that's probably one of the coolest things. But, and now that I've got 2 children, being away from them is definitely one of the more difficult things. And then when you bring the family with you, my wife has been so great about it. She understands that I'm there to golf. So she tries to make it as easy as she can on me. But at the end of the day, I'm trying to spend as much time as I can with them. So it can be difficult, but at the end of the day, I'm traveling, I'm getting to play golf. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm frustrated that I'm not on the PGA Tour, but that's okay. It's just making me want to go out there and grind harder and, go make some extra putts every night or go chip. And, So it's quite an excursion.
It was funny because when you mentioned about your family being there with you, but also you kind of having that separation and the understanding you're there to compete. There was a funny story about Finau in the final group with Tiger at the Masters last year, and he was just super excited to be in that pairing with one of his idols. And he said there was almost no talk up until about the 12th or the 13th hole where he approaches Tiger in the fairway, says, "Hey Tiger, how's your family doing?" And he said Tiger just kind of looked over at him and smiled and said they're good, and just kind of kept walking, like kind of acknowledging, like I'm here to do business, not kind of talk,
Right.
make small talk. And but Finau was just kind of living in the moment and treasuring it, even though he was out there trying to win too. And I know all of Team OnCore has got your back, and we believe in you, and we know you will accomplish all of your goals. So thank you for being on here. Any final thoughts you want to leave our audience with?
No, I really appreciate it, Steve. This has been fun, and if you're out there watching, you need to try the elixir, and just understanding the spin of the ball. Like I said, I mean, it's the golf ball game has come a long way, and I truly believe that the OnCore ball can help your game. It is softer on the greens. It is so much better than any ball in the wind. I can't tell my buddies that enough. I remember the very first event I played with it in Portland. Was that in 17? I played with Matt Harmon, who was a Titleist guy, and on the second hole, par 3, into the wind. I mean, he hits it farther than me. We both hit 8 irons. I'm pin high. He's 50 feet short, and he's asking me, "What the heck did you hit?" And I'm like, "I hit OnCore," and he just started laughing. But ultimately at the end. But the thing I like to tell most people when they're golfing is you probably don't play or practice enough to get upset. So there's no reason to come out thinking that you're going to shoot 72 every time. Enjoy it. There's
Right.
nothing worse than a guy getting super upset out there. So try to enjoy it. And you know what? If you are putting in the time and you really are practicing, just still remember that, it's a game and you need to have fun. It's tough to be out there with some people when they're getting upset. So, just kind of be respectful to everybody you're playing with and, spin the ball the right way.
Well, we appreciate having you on, Andy. Thank you for everything you do for the OnCore family here. Best of luck to you in your events when you get started again. And it was a pleasure talking to you.
You got it, Steve. I appreciate it.
Great. Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Bye.